Hello and welcome to the Family Business. I'm your host, Joe Castiglione Jr. Got my co-host, Isaac Stoops, in the house. And we also have national champion professional softball player, former Michigan Wolverine as well, Alex Storako. Alex, thanks for joining the show.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Oh, we appreciate you joining via Zoom. You're in Oklahoma City, though, right? The far metropolis
I'm
of
in
Oklahoma City.
Norman.
Oh,
Yeah.
Norman. Okay. Well, not that far. So the whole Zoom
No.
connection thing. But thanks for joining. New thing we're kind of starting, we just want to talk about, the family business, so we want to expand on it. So what about OU softball makes it such a special family?
Gosh, I feel like there's so many points that I could probably hit on. I think what really sticks out to me and why I ended up committing here to OU was the aspect of Coach Gasso, and she quite literally has her son on staff. Um, Jackie, the director of ops, has been on staff for what seems like forever, and Coach Gasso's right-hand man. I mean, she has the grandkids around. She has, everyone so enveloped. And when you think about like those core couple of girls that have been around for what seems like also forever, is, they've been Sooners for what seems like 10 years now when you really count in like that recruiting process and everything like that. And so when you have quite literally a family being, built on such a great foundation of, just really good culture and faith. I think that's what adds into just like that family style of, coaching and program that Coach Gasso has really brought together. And I think that also adds to the success that it's grown into the past couple of years as well.
Yeah, I feel like some people might think that it's somewhat of a factory. I mean, obviously you guys, recruit great players and then put out great pros, year in and year out. But did you kind of, I mean, did you have were those your expectations coming in, or how was it, or did you know all that coming in? Like that it was more so like a family than, because I mean you came for 1 year and obviously won a national championship, but I feel like some people might get that misconstrued.
Yeah, I feel like it is also kind of just difficult because in this era of softball that's not really used to that portal aspect. I mean, with my year there was 4 transfers and 4 freshmen. So in that case there's 8 newbies. So it's like you really have to fall back on the culture that's built there. And so that's where a lot of the success comes from is what Coach Gasso has instilled in the rest of her program. But I think in the recruitment process, I tried doing a lot of research. I was on campus literally like they won Thursday night. I was on campus by 10 a.m. Friday morning. Um, and so that was my first visit of the recruiting process, and I did as much research as I could. But I think there was a lot of different things that, I was like nervous about and wasn't sure, just because if you have a program that's filled with so many talented athletes, is there going to be, that, kind of arrogancy or cockiness, or we've been here, we've had this success, and now you want to join, and there was none of that. And I think that just adds to it. And I felt like part of the family as soon as I got here on campus. And I think that was a big part of, that inclusion with it all. And it's really easy to adapt when, everyone's so welcoming. And they did so well with just navigating how many, new people were on the team, whether that was freshmen or incoming transfers. And I think that is so hard to do. We were the biggest class the year prior. It was just the transfer class of Hope Troutwine and Alyssa Brito. So with as big of a class of new faces around, I think it just, goes into that, family aspect, the culture rich part of the program that Coach Gasso has ran here for 30 years or so.
It's it's kind of overshown because last year it just seemed like such a smooth transition. Of course, you had the streak, only one loss, and a national championship. But when you're integrating 8 new players into the program and then have that type of success, it's got to show something to the culture. It has to show something to what's built, by Coach Gasso and the rest of the coaching staff. Other than winning, once you were able to step on campus and feel that family type atmosphere, did that check all your boxes? And then I don't remember, but did you commit right point sight on scene, or did you go back and play a little bit of hardball and then come back?
I committed on my visit, but truth be told, I didn't even want to visit. I was like, you know what? Like, I'm not sure if I want to go to Oklahoma. And my mom was like, hey, like, I think you should just go just to say you went, kind of having those bragging rights. I didn't expect myself to fall in love with Oklahoma and the campus and everything. And there was a couple hiccups on my visit with everything. And with, Joe C showed me around, which was very uncommon. He took me through everything, and Jackie was another really crucial part of, my decision to commit here. And I feel like as I met with each coach and everything, I'm like looking at myself. I remember we were at the golf course, and I went to the bathroom, and I was like, what am I doing? Like, I'd be so silly to go anywhere else to accomplish what I want to get done. And they hadn't even like shown me everything yet. Like, I think that was the point of like why am I even I didn't even try to play the hard ball, even try to negotiate anything. Like, it was just like, look, I have 1 year, like, let's do it. And eventually when I was committing, Coach Gasso didn't even realize what I was doing. JT was like, Mom, like, hey, which was like funny because looking back, like, JT never calls her mom at all. So it was just like funny, and they just come off such a successful run that he was like, I haven't seen her speechless, and she like didn't know what to say to me because she didn't realize what I was saying to her in the process. So it was really cool, and looking back, like, I have no regrets. It was amazing and everything and more. And the relationships that I built, I think that's also so special out of what came out of OU, and lifetime friends that I'll have and memories that are unforgettable.
Josie Senior drives a hard bargain, so I've heard.
He does. I don't know if he was wearing a fedora that day, but he could have. That would have closed the deal. No wonder.
Yeah.
But I remember he actually, I can't remember, there was a celebration. He's like, yeah, I got to go lead around a huge softball recruit. He's like, if we can get her, he always goes like this. He goes, if we can get her, we'll be real nice next year.
Well,
And so,
I bet you made him very happy that day.
yeah, no, he was probably really.
Was it hard for you to like? I'm being from up north from Chicago. Was it, and going to Michigan? Was it weird coming down here to? I mean, the plains, like Oklahoma's a lot different.
Yeah, we're the southeast now,
Yeah,
baby.
oh yeah, exactly. But kind of talk about
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. I mean, coming from the suburbs of Chicago, I'm so used to just a faster way of life. And everyone always asks, like, how are you liking Oklahoma? Like, do you have any complaints? I'm like, my one complaint is that people drive very slow around here. I probably seem like a madman when I'm driving. And then I'll never forget, like, getting off the plane at Will Rogers, and going to get our like rental car and everything. And I'm looking around, I'm like, okay, this is Oklahoma. It was kind of like that moment in the Hannah Montana movie, and she's like stepping off. She's like, "Hello, New York," and it's like cows mooing and everything, and it felt that way in a sense of like, where's the city? Like, where am I at? I've never even thought of living in Oklahoma or checking it out, setting foot in the place. So, it was an aspect and a little bit of a change, but I think, that also provided that like small town home feel that I really, really loved after, concluding my visit and everything. And I was like, you know what, like, maybe I do need a change of speed in life. And it really kind of helped in a lot of ways too.
I just think about when people like get in and Will Rogers, they look around, they're like,
Shouldn't
wow.
be this easy.
Yeah, exactly. You go to your luggage, you go to the rental car. It's
Yeah.
like, now it's in a different building, but it used to be in the same building. You're like, is this really it?
Yeah, that's it.
I'm not supposed to go somebody else. Nothing like a Chicago airport.
Nothing.
Oh no, oh, that's a whole different monster in itself.
Oh, without a doubt. Well, I wouldn't trade it for the world. But you talked about a little bit about Patty's family aspect and that hat she wears. And of course she wears the coach hat, recruiting, development. With all those hats she wears, like, what insight do you have into this season? This season, it's been a very successful season by all terms, but there has been some, roadblocks. There's been some challenges, a couple losses here and there, not winning the Big 12 regular season title, but then now they go back and win the Big 12 tournament. Knowing and been in the program, what insight do you have of how Patty's navigating this team, when these challenges have presented themselves?
Yeah, I think another thing too is like the definition of successful and in a good year in Oklahoma softball. The expectation is so high, and I think in any other program you're like, wow, we had a phenomenal year. This has been great, like, and everything else. And I think that line gets a little bit blurred when you just take a look and experience success that Oklahoma softball has had in the past couple of years. But I think going to coach, I think what's cool about this team is I think they'll be, yes, seasoned veterans in the postseason, per usual, but they're even more so in the way of they know how to handle a little bit more of that challenging aspects of some losses, especially in the regards that it's kind of happened this year, in a way of like going down to Texas and outscoring them for the weekend, but still losing in 2 out of 3, and just like bringing and being at home for the Bedlam series and still losing too. There's so many different aspects that I think lead into it. And I think she kind of has brought maybe that motherly aspect of like, hey, like we're still successful and we're still going to get it done, and we're just getting kind of hit in the mouth maybe more times than we're used to. But it's not about that. It's about how we get up from that, and kind of having that motherly aspect of wiping the dirt off of us as you know you take after you take a tumble. And I think that's going to propel a lot of the success from here on out. And just seeing that flip being switched somehow, some way, I don't know what she said, did, or negotiated with the team, but I love that they're writing it out after that Sunday win against Oklahoma State. It just feels like a different team. I've been reporting on them within the radio all season, and it's just like there's something that's missing. It just doesn't feel like the team that, you know, I played with last year. And obviously, a lot of things are different, but there was something and I'm like, what's the craze? Like what's that infectious part of Oklahoma softball? And I feel like I've finally, as a fan, got a glimpse of that since that Sunday game against Bedlam and at the Big 12 tournament. They're just so fun to watch, and there's something about them playing the game and getting things done and being scrappy and celebrating that the way that I know we took a lot of heat for last season, and being able to just see that as a fan, I'm like, okay, I get it now. I get the Oklahoma Sooner craze with softball. They're different, and they finally have shown that since that Sunday game. And Coach Gasso is known for making some deals within the team, and we get some, you know, cool gear, whether that's, you know, some shoes or an extra sweatshirt or anything. So I don't know if any of that was ever navigated or talked about or anything like that. But that's something that I always kind of go back to as well. And I was like, what do you mean you guys make deals when I first got here? And they're like, oh, just wait. And then I got some extra pair of dunks and everything. And I'm like, I like this. I see where, you know, that prize aspect comes into play.
Incentivize winning at all costs.
Exactly.
I agree with her methods. Kind of talk about, I mean, you talked about some people didn't like how you guys celebrated. If you're a fan, you love it. If you're not a fan, then obviously you hate it, but that's just being a sore loser. But kind of like Love Field, obviously they had a great first year in their new stadium, and I know they're playing in regionals, super regionals here in a couple days. What are your thoughts about the obviously new stadium? Kind of stinks. It's a year after you left, but I know you were there for the first game. I was too, but kind of just give me your first initial reaction of the place.
I think what's so cool about it, and I think it'll play a really big aspect in the postseason with teams coming here to play within regionals and supers, is it feels like that, seventh wonder of softball. Like it feels like it belongs in the Mount Rushmore of it all. Like there's so much that goes into it, the success, the national championships, but the what OU softball has done for the sport in general is, I think, will be remembered for years and years and years to come. One of my favorite graphics that was shown this past weekend was the fact of this senior class having more national championships than a lot of teams, but I think ranking third after UCLA and Arizona as programs in their history. So just like thinking like that is so cool. Walking into Love's Field, you turn like from gate one and go around the corner and you see just like the field enveloped in seats. It feels just so like on top of each other in a cool like sport way. Like I can't think of a lot of facilities in my mind that I've been to, whether that's softball or other places, where it's like you're just surrounded by this electricity within the fans and everything. And I think that'll be an intimidating factor for teams when they come and play here. And now that we've kind of settled as a team playing and practicing wise finally, and they got to see facilities finished kind of like locker room wise this weekend. It's like a little bit more of that home aspect for the Crimson and Cream, and I think that's going to be a big aspect because I know opening weekend it was like, yeah, we haven't even practiced, we haven't even taken a ground ball here. And just a lot of emotion upon that opening weekend. And I think, with people, I mean, I saw last year we were playing at Marita Hines, and for regionals, teams were still showing up in like wide-eyed, like recording all of the field and the stands and everything. And I think it'll be a whole nother level for teams to travel up and see that field because it's so beautiful. And it's just like I've seen people have that initial reaction because I'm like, hey, come visit, we'll come to a game at Love's, and everyone just like, I have the chills because of how much this program has done for a sport that's finally getting its flowers.
No, when I walked in the first time, I'm like, this exceeded any of my expectations, and they were already pretty high.
Yeah.
But if for anybody who hasn't been there, recommend getting a game there. I know it'll be tough this weekend, next weekend. I think I only saw there's only standing room only tickets already available for the regional. But I recommend you getting your butt in a seat there because it is phenomenal. Like you said, it's surrounded. They feel on top of you, and so that's going to play a role, when it comes to this year. So really, really cool. And then you kind of mentioned how the infectious energy of this team, and so how that may build. Do you think they kind of got that swagger back a little bit? I feel like the last couple of months, I mean, this is completely an outsider's view, but when the struggles happened, it just didn't feel like they were walking around with that swag, the pep in their step. They weren't having as much fun. Maybe outside pressures were leaning on them, or maybe they just weren't having as much fun. But it just kind of seems like over the past week or so, they just kind of got that pep in their step back. And so maybe Loves Field plays a role in that, getting back and playing again at Devon Park now. I have the right name. Devon Park.
I made that mistake too.
Devon Park, getting back there. Do you think that's going to play a role too? I mean, because who can be excited about the postseason? And then this is really where they get on the TV screens and then, broadcast that energy to the rest of the nation.
Yeah, I think it'll play a big part. I think another thing too is that emotion that is in a lot of it, with half of their team being 10 seniors that are like trying to also think about, these are a lot of lasts, these are a lot of, kind of putting the bow on a lot of careers and paths and success and records and everything coming to an end collegiately. I think that's an also emotional thing. From the start of the year, you had that, 71 win streak kind of lingering in the background. That was a pressure. And then just also to like, okay, this is our last trip to Kansas. This is our last trip to this place in the Big 12. And also that transition before heading to the SEC and having this just be such a historic senior class. I think that adds a lot of pressures because you have these athletes that have done just such amazing, outlandish things since they've stepped on campus. I mean, Tiara Jennings putting up the numbers that she has and being a freshman of the year. Jada Coleman coming off such an amazing year last year, who was a player of the year finalist. Nicole May having like the best numbers of her career last year. And there's a lot of comparison that happens not only between other players, but within themselves and their careers here at Oklahoma. And I think because of the media attention, it only adds to that factor and how sometimes, that social media aspect can be hard. But I think now they have kind of shed that, expectation, that layer of all of that kind of winding up and they've just let it be free and it kind of soaked in the, senior weekend that happened against Bedlam, and then being able to just, hey, like, let's do it. Let's play with a chip on our shoulder. No one expects anything. I think one of my favorite parts about postseason is the fact of everything from regular season gets wiped away. No one cares about those numbers. No one is expecting anything. Everything is a clean slate. And I think that's kind of that mindset that they're buying. You see the emotion and why you see another thing. And there's just a lot of other aspects of, finally hitting the ball and getting into plays instead of kind of taking a passive approach to the plate and, celebrating the walks. I know we really bought into that for a long time, and I think that made them kind of on their heels a little bit. And so to see that switch in their play has been really exciting, and I think just adds the fuel to the fire of the emotion and the passion that you see out of this program.
Yeah, you kind of talked about, they're kind of unwinding and playing free and whatnot. Just kind of talk about, like, obviously, the expectations are always high, but, what is it like when the expectation is like you said, national championship or bust almost is what it, sometimes feels like. I mean, I'm sure it can be hard throughout the length of a season, like a long season. But I mean, do you also kind of thrive on that? Because obviously, it's a kind of a privilege when you have pressure because it means you're worth it.
Absolutely. I mean, I've heard so many people say, pressure is a privilege, but I think to also kind of put it into meaning too, the pressure that we had last year with a one-loss season and the record that we started, we never really talked about it, the streak and everything in the locker room, but you could always just kind of feel it, and it was just kind of like everyone holding their breath at certain times. Not, I wouldn't say from the team, but like everyone around you of like maybe support staff or the fans that you see in the stadium. And I think um, what kind of also just puts that into perspective is in the last 3 years, you see Coach Gasso get a little bit more emotional after the season and that national championship interview. Last year's everyone's like, oh, what's the one word that you really feel right now, and what do you feel? And she is like in tears, and she just says like relieved. I just feel just relief for it all being over, which is a weird aspect to think about because you think about everyone dreams of winning a national championship, and it's like it's really, really hard to get to the top, but it's even harder to stay at the top and to see what this program and coaching staff has done to stay at the top at the level that they have. It's one thing to be at the top, but it's one thing to just continue to break their own records year after year. The pressure can amount, and I think, we don't ever show it until it's all over with. And I think there's a breaking point in that realm as well. But like you said, pressure is a privilege, and there's a reason why, when you see this team lose or something happens against this team, other teams celebrate like they won the World Series because of, you know, the expectation of this team and how it feels almost like impossible to beat this team in little battles or, the whole 7 innings. And I think that's another thing to kind of consider as well as other teams play Oklahoma and that's their World Series where, in Oklahoma's terms, it's always another stepping stone to the true trophy that they really are striving for.
It's a little ironic because, like you said, they have received some criticism before about the way they play the game. They're very fiery. They celebrate walks. They're very boisterous. They're very loud. But that's what makes it so fun. Mm-hmm. Shout out Danny Cannell. So hopefully that OU Florida State series happens in the Super Regional. I'm sure Danny Cannell will get off the Twitter fingers again. But I look forward to it, honestly. So that's what I'm hoping. Yeah. But it's kind of funny and very ironic, like you said, because each time a team beats Oklahoma, they're celebrating like they won a national championship. I mean, to that same level. So it's a little ironic in that. And I was going to ask about, too, just expand a little bit. Last year, I mean, you guys were aware of the streak, but was it ever mentioned at all, or was it just kind of like an out of sight, out of mind thing? And you were focused on winning a national championship, and if it came in 3 games in the World Series, it came in 3 games, or if it came in 2 games, it came in 2 games. Was that just kind of an afterthought? I mean, I can imagine after the season and kind of how that carried over to the next year, they might have felt it a little bit more. But just talk about a little bit, being on the team last year during the streak and towards the end when you're like, wow, we're really starting to stack wins here and really break some records.
Yeah.
Yeah. Truthfully, like in the locker room, it really wasn't a point of conversation. I think we only like knew where we were at either in like a post game like announcement or question to us, or whether that was on social media in a caption of something, or you're just scrolling. And I quite literally couldn't remember what our number was last year until I saw our championship ring. It has 53 straight on it. And I was like, oh, like I didn't even realize it was 53. So I think I always giggle at myself about that and just like, oh, I just didn't realize the number until very long after because our rings were delayed too. And so
they made you wait.
It's so funny to think about because like in memory, like we truly didn't like think about the streak at all. And if you look at that one loss, it's a single pitch that keeps us from an undefeated a year, in which is just unheard of in itself. I still like can't believe that we only had one loss because I feel like it was never, oh my gosh, this is what we could do. It was just like next game, next game, next game. And I felt myself even then that mindset as the confetti was in the air on June 8th of like, okay guys, what's next? And everyone's like, no, like this is it. Like this is the national champ. Like we just won. And it's like you get so used to, that pattern that okay, like what are we preparing for next? Like who's next? Who's going to do all that that when I literally looked up in the confetti and everyone's like, Alex, like you did it. Like this is what you came here for. And it was just kind of a pinch me moment of we just got so good at compiling wins together to be as successful as we were, and we didn't even realize it. Like we were a team that loved softball and loved the passion and put it all together. But in reality, like when I tell you, we got building ourselves as a foundation through, I mean, backyard volleyball that was way too competitive. Like we had a lot of like potlucks within the team of just like getting together and watching games of, other sports and everything like that. Like there was so much more that went into it than just like what we did on the field. And I think that's also what made us so good, and not care about the level of success that we were having. And it's cool to be a part of and look back and be like, wow, that's probably one of the greatest softball teams that'll be put together in a really long time, and just being so fortunate to like have my name in that pile is so cool and still mind-blowing to this day, even close to a year later.
Yeah, you guys are such high-level competitors, but it is, even especially at our age, it's easy to get bored with repetition. It almost like it probably, I mean, well, you're so locked in that you're just kind of like concerned with stacking days, which means, in your case, stacking wins. And yeah, I don't know. I can see, that kind of being the case. It's just like it kind of feels like, yeah, like clockwork, like I said. But you said at Michigan, you never made it all the way to the World Series. Obviously, you had a great career there, but what was it like, playing in the World Series for the first time? Was it kind of like oh wow moment, or?
It was surreal. I think what Coach Gasso does such a good job of doing is getting us used to what was Hall of Fame, what is now Devon Park. So my year we played at the Hall of Fame Classic and in the freezing cold in March, and then we had the Texas game as a Friday there, and then obviously Big 12 is there. And as you go through that process, the attendance grows, the what's at stake grows, and everything, and so. You get used to it, but I'll never forget looking around and seeing the entire field surrounded with the outfield bleachers. I think that's what makes like one of the bigger differences is seeing that kind of screening face and having to go from like the bullpen to the field, and there's like a bridge over you where people and fans can walk by. Like I was like, oh crap, like I'm actually like here. This is crazy. And you kind of have that. She gives you, I think what's cool too is Coach Gassu gives you that moment to like look around and take it all in, and then she's like, okay, let's bring it back. Let's focus and get it done. And I think that was another cool part is like she knows the capability of this program and what she does in bringing other transfers in and freshmen in, and letting them take in that moment, because this is what you've worked your entire life for. Especially as a grad transfer like Haley Lee and I, we had 1 year to kind of do it, and we did it. And so there's a lot of things that kind of go into that factor of like, did we do well in taking this risk to, kind of put at bay the career and legacy that we could have had at our former, institution, was Michigan or Texas A&M, and kind of making a name for ourselves there. Like, did we put it to good use? In our cases, yes, because we got the ring that we wanted. And I think that's a big thing too. Like as athletes, a lot of people kind of set aside the fact of like, we're taking a chance, on that name that we've built for ourselves in a former institution to, follow our dreams. And I think that's always a big deal, as well.
Just kind of back to the recruiting process a little bit. You kind of alluded to it a little bit right there, but going into your final year, you obviously had a very decorated career at Michigan and achieved a lot of things, but going to your next school, whether that had been Oklahoma or somewhere else, was competing for a national championship the prime thing you were looking for, or were you just looking to develop yourself a little bit further, or what was that decision inputs for your decision to ultimately end up at Oklahoma, but any of those schools?
Yeah, there was a lot of things that I kind of wanted to check off, whether that was location wise, weather wise. For me, I wanted to go to a warmer school. I was tired of playing in the snow in April. That was a big thing, and getting a little farther from home. Michigan was only 4 hours ish with traffic, so I was able to get home, I just wanted to branch out. Big thing for me is I wanted to go to a football school. That was a huge thing for me. It would have been really hard. I'm so passionate about sports that going from a school like Michigan that was so deep in the football tradition, that I like kind of put that forth. And I think people are shocked about that because it's like, didn't you go to like win a national championship? I'm like, yes, but there's so much other stuff that goes into it. And so Oklahoma kind of, brought that aspect to me with just being very tradition rich. I came from a program that was, very traditional, in just like the amount of legacy that stems from Michigan. It's very similar to OU, and I loved that. Obviously, a ring was a big part of it. But I think there's just so many other aspects, whether that was, the warmth. I was like, I want to play for a Nike school. And so like that was an aspect for me. Just like little things that you don't think about, like branding wise, like Wilson or Rawlings, like what kind of gloves am I playing with? And there's a lot of other things, like weird things that everyone's like, you're kind of crazy to like have that as a checklist. But I think for me, it helped with narrowing down a lot. As well, because my final four schools were Oklahoma, Alabama, Florida, and Florida State. And so all very rich in tradition in softball, very successful in softball, but also had a lot of those other aspects for me. There wasn't going to be, a coaching change. I wanted to be a part of a pitching staff and not just a singular pitcher on a staff, to help succeed. So at those other programs, there was other girls that could help, in being successful because I knew in all its totality to win and not just put it on a singular player or person. And I think that was a really big aspect of what I was looking for as well.
Makes sense though, because everything factors into how you play.
Yeah, softball. I mean, softball's a lot of your time, but it's also like you're more than just a softball player. It's like where you live, how's the weather gonna be, what are the people like, what's the food like. I mean, there's all sorts of other things. At the end of the day, we are humans also, so I totally get that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we appreciate you joining. One last thing that we like to do with our guest is, of course, Isaac and I have fathers who have, we've grown up around the family business and we've grown up around athletics because of our fathers. So we like to give you the opportunity to ask us anything, whether it be about our fathers or, growing up around Oklahoma or, anything under the sun.
Yeah, anything OU really. We're 0 for 3 on prepping our guest with beforehand.
We like to throw them in the fire. You asked me about how I don't like.
Yeah, gosh. I'm trying to think. Was there ever difficulty for either of you kind of wanting to either follow in your dad's footsteps in whatever career, whether that was coaching for you, Isaac, or like athletic director route for you, Joe, or were you like...
Oh, we lost her.
My computer died.
Okay, just Isaac, you can start over. You
okay.
cut it.
Yeah.
You had a good answer. We were rolling. We were keeping it going.
Yeah. No, it was never really like... obviously, like Joe said, the pressure kind of more so felt like from the outside people. They kind of just expect that that's what you're going to do because your dad was so good at it, and almost like that's all that you can do. But for me, I played just for a very short time here, and then I got into student coaching at OU after doing a little bit of high school coaching. I really enjoyed it, but I don't know. It just wasn't really what I wanted to do long term. I don't think it's just, there's a lot of, very pressing demands that come with it that people don't think about. They think about the wins and like the celebrating and like, that kind of cool things, but the time, commitment that it is, the travel, the, everything, it's a lot. And so I kind of just started to slowly shy away from it. And obviously now I'm working for a sports management company. So trying to stay around sports in some aspects so I can keep my sanity. But it was never really like too daunting. It's certainly not from an inside circle perspective. Like my dad was always very supportive and me doing whatever makes me happy or whatever I think that I'd be good at. He wanted to be a basketball coach. Obviously football worked out a little better, but
that's pretty good. Kind of building what Isaac said, like there was never really any pressure from the inside. Of course, my dad wanted me to do anything or still wants me to do whatever I want. Because even early on, I didn't want to go to OU for those exact reasons. I didn't want not necessarily the pressure, but just the assumption that, you're Joe C's kid, you're going to get this or you're going to be this way or you're going to do that. And so I didn't want to go to OU. I wanted to go to TCU or go play football at a smaller school. And so I had those opportunities, but then it came down to like, OU checked the boxes of what I wanted to do in a college. And so, but furthermore, like I wanted to be coach for a while too. I did the student coaching thing before I played a couple years at OU, and then wanted to be a strength coach for the football team. Did an internship. I had my master's in health and exercise science actually, and then funny enough, I'm other than this, I'm not in the sports industry now. I work like a corporate job, but not really. I still wouldn't rule out anything. You know, I'm staying around sports. You know, maybe when they figure out this NIL and transfer portal thing, or when they figure that out down the road, maybe, just because kind of what Isaac said is, you know, there's so much pressures and things. I mean, it's a great job. It provides a ton of opportunities, some that I've been, you know, blessed with, and Isaac's been blessed with. It's provided so many different things and stuff for us and experiences. But at the same time, you know, it's a really hard job for both of them. And, you know, it's a lot more time than even people expect, and a lot more not effort, but energy that it requires. And so maybe one day, but not right now. But there was no pressure.
I think for me and it's a blessing really, but like the biggest challenge was growing up around, you know, 85, like a stadium of 85,000 just like fans that are just crazy about OU football. It was hard for me in the recruiting process when I go to visit Arkansas, or I go to visit some other schools, like, and I'm like, you know, it's just like, you know, and those are all great schools, but it's just like, it's hard when this is your comparison. You know, comparison's like the thief of joy, and you know, I'm comparing it to like one of the top, I don't know, 5-10 schools in the country as far as atmospheres go. So that's something that I did not, you know, plan for really. But yeah.
No, but that was a great question.
Yeah.
Alex, thanks for joining us today.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me, and sorry about the technical issues, but I appreciate it all.
You're all good. For everybody watching, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. It helps the algorithm, helps us, help you. And remember to keep it in the family.